Did you know America's collapse is no accident? It is a silent war unfolding inside your own home. Store shelves are emptying, cities are going bankrupt, and the middle class, once the backbone of the nation, is now fighting just to survive.
Today's America is no longer the picture of the strong economy it once was. It is like a gigantic machine whose every nut and bolt is coming loose, yet people cannot hear the sound. Within just a few months, thousands of families are trying to survive on a single income. Credit card bills have reached such a level that many can't even make the minimum payments. Half the people in the cities panic when they see a zero balance in their bank accounts at the end of the month. At the same time, massive amounts of government money are flowing overseas, while stress, depression, and suicide rates rise across the country. It is a cycle that is slowly breaking the morale of the people. And surprisingly, no one is calling this chaos an accident. Critics believe the economy is being destroyed in a way that resembles a controlled experiment. But it's not just the economy. An even more dangerous threat lies behind the systems that supply our food. Most Americans believe the store shelves will always be full, but those shelves are filled not day by day, but hour by hour, and that system relies on just a handful of delivery trucks, automated warehouses, and tech-driven logistics. In a country where a typical grocery store doesn't store more than 3 days' worth of food, a major storm, a border disruption, or even a small cyber attack can leave entire neighborhoods with empty shelves. In 2021, when Texas faced extreme cold, stores were emptied within 48 hours. Today's reality is that each fruit or vegetable on your table travels 1,000 to 1,500 miles to reach you. When Mexico halts shipments even for a few days, or drought worsens on the West Coast, your plate feels it directly. America's major agricultural companies have already laid off thousands of workers, reduced factory numbers, and at the same time, a large share of fresh foods is being imported. A single fire, a halted truck line, or software hack, any one event can lead to rationing across a city. And people will truly feel the crisis the moment essential items or baby formula suddenly go out of stock. Behind the bright city lights and towering skyscrapers lies infrastructure so old that even a small amount of pressure makes it shake. Many American cities rely on pipes, sewage systems, and electrical grids that are nearly a century old. These places may look strong from the outside, but inside they're trapped in debt and crippled by inefficient management. The economic crisis is so deep that thousands of municipalities survive not because they are financially stable, but because of loans and accounting tricks. Cities no longer have funds for pensions. Public employee retirement deficits have reached billions. And when those pensions stop, police officers, firefighters, and teachers may simply walk away from their jobs. Millions of gallons of water are wasted daily through old underground pipes. Some cities still use lead pipes, which are toxic to human health. Crime rates have surged abnormally. Stores are being looted and daylight breaks in. Major brands are pulling out of urban areas due to safety concerns. Target, Whole Foods, Walgreens, they're all shutting down stores. These crises are piling up simultaneously, pushing cities toward a point where one day they may simply stop functioning. What will remain are dark streets, broken sidewalks, looted stores, and lawless zones. Many still believe cities are centers of opportunity, but the truth is, these cities now stand on an economic time bomb, and once it explodes, no one will be able to carry its burden. Once, education meant free thinking, skill building, and preparing for the future. Today, America's education system feels like a factory where thinkers are not produced, only lines of debt-burdened, futureless young adults. The dream sold under the name of college, get a degree, get a good job, now sounds like an outdated advertisement. In reality, millions of students begin their careers already carrying a burden that stays chained to them for 15 to 30 years. The problem isn't just the size of the debt. It's that they take these loans at an age when they don't fully understand how the economy works or how interest rates rise. Colleges exploit this. They keep raising tuition, expanding campuses, adding administrative positions, but the core focus on education seems to vanish. What should be taught, practical financial knowledge, real-world skills, what the job market needs, barely appears in the curriculum. So after spending 4 years in university, many students enter the workforce to find that the biggest reality is not their degree, but the unpaid bill hanging over them.
The situation is even worse in schools. Instead of nurturing curiosity, analytical ability, or hands-on learning, schools follow test-based systems that boost marks but not genuine understanding. Teachers feel extreme pressure and are quitting in large numbers. New teachers entering the system are often untrained or quickly exhausted by the structural inefficiencies.
The greatest tragedy is this: none of the root problems are being fixed. Instead, loan forgiveness and incentives widen the issue. Students get temporary relief, but colleges gain more courage to raise tuition because they know loans will always be available. In the end, higher education, meant to be an investment for the future, has turned into a lifelong financial burden. A generation is rising that cannot make major life decisions, family, home, business, because hanging over their heads is the weight of a broken promise purchased with borrowed money. While ordinary people are busy dealing with grocery bills and rent pressure, another major change is happening quietly. The US dollar is no longer the unshakable currency that used to anchor global trade for decades. Confidence in the dollar is slowly decreasing, and major world powers are creating their own alternative systems. Many countries are now conducting bilateral trade using their own currencies, bypassing international banking systems and increasing gold and commodity-backed reserves. No one is saying it loudly, but the global influence of the dollar is shrinking day by day, and the impact will hit Americans first, in grocery stores, then in fuel prices, and later in the loan market. The day the dollar truly loses its reserve status, the price of any imported item will skyrocket overnight, because the U.S. currency will no longer be the world's benchmark. This means oil, medicine, car parts, everything could cost 2 to 3 times more. Amid this economic instability lies another weak foundation: the nation's power grid. America's electrical infrastructure resembles an overworked old man, still standing but liable to collapse at any moment. Transformers are outdated, substations are at capacity, and extreme weather pressure grows every year. Yet new technologies, EVs, massive data centers, cloud servers, are all being plugged into the same grid with no long-term planning. Several events have already proven how fragile this system is. A harsh winter, an extreme heat wave, or a major cyber attack can plunge an entire region into darkness. When the power goes out, banking systems shut down, hospitals become vulnerable, water supply stops, and food supply chains collapse within hours. It's not that political leaders don't know about these problems. The issue is that instead of the large-scale planning, investment, and time required to fix them, they stay busy with things that bring votes, but not real security. If America's 2 pillars of power, currency and electricity, fail at the same time, the entire way of life will face deep consequences. The most frightening part is that all of this is happening quietly, slowly, as if the inner structure is decaying before it becomes visible from the outside. Once America's middle class was the core strength of the nation. Building homes, raising families, and shaping future dreams was their identity. But slowly, that center of strength has become an empty shell. Calling this the result of normal market shifts or economic cycles would be wrong. It resembles a long-term engineered restructuring designed to drain the wealth and freedom of ordinary people step by step. When the gold standard ended in 1971, it wasn't just a policy change. It handed the power of determining the value of money to a handful of policymakers. No matter how much productivity increased, real wages stayed stagnant. This wasn't an accident. It's a system where capital, not labor, receives rewards. And in this system, the ones who suffer most are the working middle class, the people who show up at offices and factories every day. Let's look back. In the 1980s, a middle-class American could buy a home on a single income, own a car, and secure their children's future. Today, maintaining the same standard of living requires 2 full-time incomes, and even then, handling rent in many cities feels like a battle. Housing prices have multiplied 5-fold over decades, wages have barely increased, and the gap has been filled with debt that is now at historic highs. The most disturbing part is this: the inequality is not a natural economic outcome. It is the clear result of policy.
When central banks artificially boost asset prices to stimulate the economy, housing, stock markets, and basic goods become more expensive, making the rich richer and pushing these essentials out of reach for the middle class. While the wealthiest use their assets to access tax-free loans, wage earners are left with tax burdens and little to no savings. Today, the top 1% own more wealth than the bottom 60% of the middle class. Does that resemble a healthy society? Another monster hides within the healthcare system. A typical family spends around $22,000 a year, yet receives endless bills, confusing charges, and a broken system that pushes millions into financial ruin each year. Healthcare, taxes, inflation, together they erode the power of wages. No matter how much you work, you're left with almost nothing. The most dangerous part of this depletion is that you are kept from understanding the real source of the problem. So society is divided with manufactured conflicts, culture wars, racial tensions, gender debates. The goal is simple: keep people busy fighting each other while powerful groups control wealth and policy from behind the curtain. Once America's middle class was America's pride. Today they are struggling to survive, drowning in debt, losing savings, and standing one layoff away from collapse. This is not decline, this is destruction. And it is not accidental, it is deliberate. The saddest truth is most people still believe they are living in a free country. But in this new reality, freedom means permanent renting instead of owning a home, counting days through debt instead of building a future, depending on digital systems instead of making your own decisions. America's middle class is no longer a symbol of prosperity, it is a warning. And that warning says, if you are not careful, the next generation will know freedom only as something written in history books.